My life never looked special from the outside, just another middle-class girl, one broken engagement, too many family dramas. If you saw me on the street, you'd probably think I'm the kind of person who cries quietly, pays her bills on time, and avoids trouble. But that evening, I was sitting in the back seat of a bulletproof black SUV, on my way to watch my ex marry my sister, with the most feared mafia boss in the city sitting right beside me. The city lights slid across the tinted windows like slow-moving ghosts. My blue dress felt too tight around my ribs, not because it was small, but because my chest wouldn't stop hurting. My palms were slick against the leather seat, crushing the wedding invitation I'd promised myself I wouldn't look at again. Arjun and Meera, it said in gold letters, the ink pressed so deep into the paper it felt like a scar. I pressed my thumb over my sister's name until it blurred. Beside me, Kabir didn't say a word. In the dark space of the car, his presence filled everything. He wore a black suit that looked like it had been sewn out of night itself, no tie, the top button of his shirt open like he didn't owe respect to anyone. His watch caught a line of streetlight, silver heavy, the kind you wear when you're used to people watching your hands carefully. I could feel his eyes on me without even looking, quiet, sharp, noticing everything. There was a loaded gun somewhere on him. There were at least 2 more in the front, with the men who called him Bai, like he was both their brother and their god. "You're breathing too fast," he said softly, in that calm voice that never matched the stories people told about him. "You'll faint before we reach the gate." I let out a shaky laugh that sounded more like a cough. Would that be so bad? He turned his head toward me. Even in the dim light, his gaze was intense but not unkind. People said that if you looked into Kabir Sinha's eyes, you'd either see your future or the end of it. I saw something else. A man who had learned how to be a monster so no one could hurt him first. "You wanted to go," he reminded me. "You asked me to bring you." The memory stabbed through me so fast I had to close my eyes. The first time I heard about the wedding, I was standing in the kitchen, holding my cracked phone, listening to my mother's voice break on the other end. "Beta, don't be angry, it just happened. Arjun and Meera, they're getting married. He says they fell in love after you left." After I left, as if I had just gone on vacation, not run from the ruins of our engagement, from the whispers, from the way my own sister stopped meeting my eyes. For a week I didn't eat properly. My private anger became a second skin. Then the card arrived, white and gold, happy fonts and fake flowers pressed into the paper. I stared at it for hours, my tears drying into salt on my cheeks, until my phone buzzed with a name most people would pray never appeared on their screen. Kabir. I still don't know what hurt more, that my ex was marrying my sister, or that the only person I could think of calling in that moment was a mafia boss. Now in the car, I kept my eyes on my hands, on the cheap ring still sitting on my finger like a habit I hadn't broken. "I didn't ask you to bring an army," I muttered, trying and failing to sound normal. "You know it's just a wedding." From the front seat, one of Kabir's men chuckled under his breath. The sound died instantly when Kabir spoke. "Ajay," he said quietly without even raising his voice, "park at the back entrance. No one steps out until I say, no one touches her, no one even looks at her wrong, understood?" "Yes, Bai," I could feel the driver straighten, as if the words themselves were a command to his spine. I swallowed. "You're scaring them." "They should be scared." Kabir shifted slightly, turning more fully toward me. Up close, the scar cutting through his eyebrow softened his face in a strange way, like a permanent question mark. "You think your ex respects you, your sister, your family who invited you like you're a distant cousin, not the girl he promised to marry first." His words landed heavier than the car itself. I stared at him, the anger and shame and love I still hated myself for all tangled in my throat. "They're still my family," I said quietly. He held my gaze for a long moment. "That's exactly why I came." For a second, the world outside the windows disappeared. There was just that sentence hanging between us like smoke. I remembered the first time I saw Kabir, blood on his knuckles, a man crying at his feet, begging for mercy he didn't deserve. I remembered how after everyone left he had offered me his handkerchief, not for the blood but for my tears. "Don't waste them on people who wouldn't bleed for you," he'd said then. Now his voice had the same steady weight. No drama, no fake sympathy, just presence. "You're thinking of running," he said suddenly. "I'm thinking of surviving," I shot back, surprising even myself with the sharpness in my tone. He smiled just from one corner of his mouth. It wasn't cruel, it was proud almost. "Good, survival is a language I understand." The SUV slowed. The muffled thump of music seeped through the glass now, the typical loud wedding playlist, laughter rising underneath it. Someone was lighting fireworks, their brief flashes of color streaked against the night sky as we approached the back of the big, over-decorated banquet hall. Through a crack in the curtain behind the driver, I saw scattered fairy lights, marigold garlands, and the shimmer of sequined lehengas. My heart started racing so hard it hurt. Every meter brought me closer to the life that had replaced me. The thought of walking through those doors made me feel small and huge at the same time, like a ghost crashing her own funeral. Kabir watched me, and I knew he was measuring every flicker in my expression. That's what made him dangerous, not his gun, not his men, not his money. It was the way he could read weakness and fear and turn them into weapons. His hand moved, slow and deliberate, resting on the seat just an inch away from mine. Not touching, close enough that I could, if I wanted, slide my fingers into that space. I didn't, but I felt the offer anyway. "You have two choices," he said softly as the car came to a stop. "We leave now and no one ever knows you were here, or you walk in beside me and everyone remembers forever who they lost." The engine died. Silence rushed into the car, broken only by my breathing and the distant, hollow clapping from inside the hall. I could imagine it already. The shocked faces, the whispered gossip, my mother's tight-lipped panic when she realized who I had brought. The rumors that would explode the moment Kabir Sinha's shoes touched the wedding floor. My throat burned. Tears pressed hot behind my eyes, not from weakness this time, but from the weight of the decision crushing my chest. "I don't want revenge," I whispered, half to him, half to myself. I just want them to see me, one last time, really see me." Kabir's gaze softened for a heartbeat, and in that moment he didn't look like a legend, or a criminal, or the man everyone feared. He looked like someone who understood exactly what it felt like to be erased. "Then let them look," he said, "and let them learn." Before I could answer, the back door clicked open. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of incense and perfume, fried food and fresh flowers. One of Kabir's men stood outside, scanning the surroundings, his hand already on his concealed weapon. Kabir stepped out first, straightening to his full height, and the bodyguard's shoulders dropped an inch, as if just seeing him there made the world less chaotic. He turned back, extending his hand to me, palm up, not forcing, just waiting. Inside, the music swelled. I could hear a familiar male voice on the microphone, Arjun, joking with the guests, the same stupid, charming tone he used to use with me when he wanted to make me forget why I was angry. My chest tightened so hard I couldn't breathe. "Are you ready?" Kabir asked. I looked at his hand, at the entrance glowing in the distance, at the life that had moved on without me. The sound of Arjun's laugh carried through the night, sharp and painful, and something in me snapped. I put my hand in Kabir's. As our fingers closed together and my heel touched the ground, a hush rippled across the back entrance. The guards, the caterers, the random uncle sneaking a smoke, all staring. Recognition sparked in their eyes as they realized who had just arrived. And at that exact moment, across the garden, Arjun turned toward the back doors, his smile freezing on his face when he saw me walking in hand with the man everyone in this city was afraid to cross. People actually stopped mid-bite when we stepped under the fairy lights. Forks hovered, conversations sliced in half. The band missed a beat. It was like someone had pressed pause on the whole wedding just because Kabir Sinha had walked in holding my hand. The hall was drowning in gold and red, flowers hanging from the ceiling, candles on every table, a fake royal backdrop for photos. But all that shine couldn't hide the way faces turned toward us. One by one, curiosity freezing into recognition, recognition melting into fear. "Is that?" someone whispered behind us. "Kabir Sinha," another voice answered, already shaky. I felt my fingers tighten around his unconsciously. He didn't look left or right. He just walked, calm, every step steady, like he owned every tile on the floor. His thumb brushed the side of my hand for a second, barely there, but enough to remind me I wasn't alone. "Manager." My mother's voice cracked on my name. She appeared from the crowd, her silk sari rustling, bindi slightly tilted, lipstick too bright for how pale her face had gone. Her eyes dropped to my hand in Kabir's, then shot back up to my face, then to his. For a second, she forgot to breathe. "Auntie," Kabir inclined his head just enough to be respectful, not submissive. "Congratulations, it's a big day." Her lips twitched into something that was trying to be a smile and failing. "Jai, thank you, Beta, you came," she said to me, but her eyes were still on him, searching, pleading, calculating all at once. "You didn't say you were bringing a friend." "Friend?" I almost laughed. Kabir's voice stayed gentle. I hope you don't mind, she shouldn't walk into this alone. That this hung between us, he didn't say wedding, he said it like he meant battlefield. I'll go call your father, my mother stammered, already backing away. Please sit, eat, make yourself comfortable. She almost collided with a waiter, snapped at him without looking, then hurried off. The poor guy glanced at us, saw who he'd almost spilled juice on, and nearly dropped the whole tray. You okay? Kabia asked quietly so only I could hear. I don't know yet, I muttered. Ask me when this is over. He gave a small huff of air that might have been a laugh. Fair. From the stage, under the bright lights, Arjun was watching us. He stood next to my sister, his cream sherwani glowing. Sarah pushed back so his face was visible. He had that same easy smile I used to fall for, the one that promised warmth and safety, but right now it was cracked at the edges. Even from across the hall I could see the muscle jumping in his jaw. My eyes moved to Meera. She looked beautiful, the red lehenga, the heavy jewelry, the long lashes dusted with gold. She always wanted a big fairy tale wedding and she'd got it. Yet when our eyes finally met, something inside me twisted. Behind the glitter on her face, she looked exhausted. The smile she gave me was tiny, unsure, gone in a second. A memory flashed, Meera stealing my lipstick when we were teenagers, both of us laughing as we ran from Mom, arguing about which of us looked better. We had shared everything once. Clothes, secrets, dreams. Now we were sharing a man in the ugliest way possible. My father reached us first. He walked slower than usual, like his legs had suddenly aged 10 years. His hair, more grey than I remembered, was combed too flat. His eyes shone, but I couldn't tell if it was tears or fear. Maybe both. Anya, he said softly. All the anger I'd rehearsed in my head, the questions, the accusations, it all burned away when I heard my name in his voice. For a moment I was 5 again, holding his finger while crossing the road. Papa, my throat closed up. He pulled me into a quick, trembling hug. I heard his breath shake in my ear. You came, he said, like he hadn't believed I would. When he stepped back, his gaze went to Kabia. Their eyes met, something shifted. The room seemed to shrink around them, the noise muffling. My father's shoulders stiffened. Respect, fear, something older, heavier I couldn't name passed over his face. Sin Hasab, my father said quietly, almost under his breath. It wasn't the shocked confusion of my mother, it was recognition. Kabia's expression didn't change much, but I felt the air between them sharpen. Uncle, he replied in a tone that was softer than I expected. It's been a long time. You two know each other? I asked, looking from one to the other. My father forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mumbai is small for men like him, he said, not really answering. Come, sit, you are our guest. Tonight, Kabia said quietly, I am only here for your daughter. For half a second my father's face cracked. Shame flickered there, or was it gratitude? I couldn't tell. He nodded, then turned, already being pulled away by some relative, shaking his hand, asking questions, throwing glances at Kabia like he was a live bomb placed on the buffet table. Why didn't you tell me you knew my father? I asked under my breath as we moved to a table near the front. Kabia pulled out a chair for me, fingers light on the backrest. Because you never asked, he said simply, and you liked believing we met by accident. The flashback hit before I could stop it. Rain pounding on a tin roof, kids huddled in a corner of the community center where I volunteered, eyes wide as gunshots popped outside in the alley. The door had burst open and he had walked in, younger but already carrying that same storm inside him. Blood smeared on his sleeve, a gun in his hand, his men dragging in some shivering boy who'd tried to steal from them. Move, one of his men had snapped when I stepped in front of the kid. He's 16, I had shouted back, chest heaving, heart in my throat. You don't bring guns into a room full of children, get out. For a second, I'd honestly thought Kabia would shoot me just for saying it. He hadn't. He'd watched me, rainwater dripping from his hair onto the cracked floor, eyes narrowing like he'd found something unexpected. Then he'd slowly lowered his gun. What's your name? He'd asked. Anja, I'd managed, hands shaking but staying where they were between him and the boy. No mafia boss had visited the center after that without sending a truck full of textbooks and medical supplies. No one dared touch the kids. Whenever someone tried, a black SUV would appear on the corner and the problem would disappear. By accident, I whispered now, dragging myself back to the present. His mouth quirked. You almost broke my nose with a metal chair that day, he said. I wouldn't call that an accident. I felt heat rise in my cheeks. You were pointing a gun at a child. I was pointing it above his head, he corrected mildly. I never aim at kids or teachers who don't know when to be scared. Before I could answer, a microphone squeal cut through the murmurs. Arjun had stepped down from the stage, the MC's jokes fading as people realized where his attention was going. He walked toward us, each step heavy, his smile fixed like it had been stapled on. "Excuse me," he said to Kabir, but his eyes were on me. "Can I talk to Anya for a moment?" Kabir didn't move. He looked at Arjun the way you look at a stray dog that's wandered too close to a loaded truck. Calm, measuring. "You can talk here," Kabir replied. Arjun swallowed. I saw his Adam's apple bob, the shine of sweat on his forehead that the hall's air conditioning couldn't explain. "Please," he insisted, "just 2 minutes." I felt everyone watching again. My chest tightened. Part of me wanted to run, part of me wanted to stand on a chair and scream. "It's okay," I said finally to Kabir. "I'll be right there." I nodded toward a spot just a few steps away, still within his line of sight. Kabir considered me for a long breath, then slid his chair back. 2 minutes, he repeated to Arjun. "And remember, words can be more dangerous than bullets. Choose yours carefully." Arjun swallowed again. "Yes, bye," he said, the word awkward on his tongue. We moved a little away, near a pillar wrapped in flowers. The music picked up again, softer now, like even the speakers knew to lower their voice. "You actually came," Arjun said, running a hand through his hair the way he always did when he was nervous. "You actually invited me," I answered. He winced. That was Mira's idea. She said not inviting you would be worse, that it would look like we were ashamed. "Are you?" I asked quietly. His eyes flickered to the floor, then back to my face. "I never wanted to hurt you," he started. I almost laughed. "You were my fiancée, you're marrying my sister. How exactly did you think this would feel?" He flinched like I'd slapped him. For a second, some honest pain crossed his features, and it confused me more than his guilt. "It wasn't like that," he said. "After you left, everything fell apart. Your dad, the business, the money, things happened you don't know about." "Then tell me," I said, my throat burning, "because from where I stand it looks very simple." He opened his mouth, closed it, looked over my shoulder. His face went even paler. Kabir hadn't moved from our table, but the way he sat, relaxed but coiled, was warning enough. Behind him, 2 of his men had quietly changed positions, one near the main door, one near the side exit. It was subtle. Guests thought they were just other relatives in dark suits, but Arjun noticed. Of course he noticed. "You came with him?" Arjun whispered, eyes wide. "Do you have any idea who he is?" "I know exactly who he is," I said. "The question is, do you?" His gaze snapped back to me, something like panic flashed there. "You shouldn't have brought him here," he hissed. "This wedding, there are already things in play, deals, you're making it worse." Cold settled in my stomach. "What deals?" He pressed his lips together. "I can't." "You already did enough you can't undo," I cut in. "So either you grow a spine and tell me, or you keep hiding like a coward and let other people pay for your choices." For a moment the man I had loved surfaced behind his eyes, the one who used to leave love notes in my bag, who knew the exact way to make my coffee. He looked lost. "Your family was drowning," he said finally, voice low and shaking. "Your dad, he owed money to people he shouldn't. I tried to save the business. I borrowed more from someone worse. And then," his gaze flicked to Kabir, "and then I made a mistake you can't fix with an apology." My heart slammed against my ribs, the hall blurred at the edges. "What did you do, Arjun?" He opened his mouth, eyes already glassy. Before he could speak, Kabir's phone vibrated on the table. He lifted it, glanced at the screen. I saw his face change, not dramatically, just a small tightening around the eyes, the kind only someone who'd been watching him as closely as I had would notice. He got to his feet in one smooth motion. "I have to go," Arjun whispered, already stepping back, fear crawling up his neck. "Anya, just be careful, please." "Wait." But he was already moving away, swallowed by relatives and photographers dragging him back toward the stage. I stood there, heart hammering, pulse ringing in my ears. Kabir was at my side in seconds. I hadn't even seen him cross the distance. "What did he say?" he asked. "That my dad owed money," I managed. "That he borrowed from someone worse. That he made a mistake related to you." Kabir's jaw flexed. He slipped his phone into his pocket, his gaze scanning the hall now, doors, balconies, waiters. The relaxed man from a few minutes ago was gone. This was the other Kabir, the one people used to scare their children into staying home at night. I just got a call, he said quietly. From who? From a man who owes me his life, he answered. He's working security at the main gate. He says some new caterers came in 15 minutes ago. Men he's never seen, no background, no IDs, all wearing the same shoes. That's a classic tell. Goosebumps rose on my arms. The music, the laughter, the clinking of glasses, it all felt suddenly fake, like a set built on top of a landmine. This wedding, Kabir continued, his eyes never stopping their slow sweep, was always a business deal. Your ex aligned himself with my enemies to pay his debts. I came here thinking I was just holding your hand through the worst night of your life. He met my gaze fully now, and I saw something raw there I had never seen before, regret. I was wrong, he said. Tonight isn't only about your heart, Anya. Someone plans to use this wedding as a message. My voice barely came out. A message to who? Kabir's lips parted, and for the first time since I'd known him, I heard a hint of anger laced with something else, fear he didn't want me to hear. To me, he said, they came here for me. The air in the hall changed, without anyone knowing why. Guests kept laughing at jokes, aunties kept adjusting their bangles, kids ran between tables chasing balloons, but underneath all of that, something went tight, like a violin string pulled too far. Kabir moved closer to me just half a step, enough that his shoulder almost brushed mine. Whatever happens, he said quietly, you do not leave my side unless I tell you, understand? My mouth was dry. You think they'll start shooting here in front of everyone? If they're desperate enough, he replied, or stupid enough, either way I won't give them an easy target. He didn't raise his voice, didn't shout instructions, didn't create panic. That was the scariest thing about him, his control. A flick of his fingers was enough. One of his men at the door adjusted his jacket, hand briefly touching his earpiece, then slipped out. Another quietly positioned himself near my parents' table, smiling as if he were just an old family friend. You brought them into danger, I whispered, looking at my mother laughing nervously with some relatives, unaware of anything beyond her fear of judgment. My family, by being here, you. They were in danger before I walked through that door, Kabir cut in gently but firmly. Your ex invited wolves into this hall long before he sent you that card. Guilt burned anyway, I shouldn't have called you. His jaw tightened. If you hadn't, you'd be standing here alone. You wouldn't even know which way the bullet was coming from. He was right, that made it worse. The MC's voice boomed through the speakers. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the moment we've all been waiting for, our lovely couple will exchange their garlands. Please come closer to the stage. People surged forward, phones held up, screens glowing like a swarm of artificial fireflies. Meera and Arjun stepped under the flower arch, smiles pinned on, faces gleaming under too many lights. Don't, Kabir said when I instinctively started to move back with the crowd. Stay where I can shield you. My chest was so tight it hurt. I can't watch this, I whispered. Look, he said, his voice was firm now. You came for a reason, to be seen, to stand, don't start hiding now. Tears pricked my eyes. It was strange, how the same man everyone feared could sound more like a teacher than a criminal in moments like this. I forced myself to look. Meera lifted the garland with shaky hands. Arjun bent forward a little, grinning for the cameras, one eye on the flowers, one on the crowd. For a heartbeat his gaze brushed mine. There was something like apology there. Then he looked away. A shadow moved near the side entrance. If I hadn't been watching Kabir's face, I would have missed it. A twitch in his left eyebrow, his hand dropping casually to his side where I knew a weapon was hidden under his jacket, his body turning just enough to block me from anyone coming from that direction. Ajay, he murmured, as if just adjusting his cuff, but I knew he was speaking into a tiny mic hidden near his collar. Report. A low answer crackled back, too quiet for me to catch, but I saw his shoulders harden. How many, he asked. Another static-laced whisper. His eyes swept the crowd. Lock the back gate, tell our guy on Main to stall anyone else who forgets their invitation. My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear the music anymore. How many what? I asked, my fingers digging into the edge of the table. How many idiots thought tonight was a good night to die, he said. Don't say it like that, my voice shook. There are kids here, my parents' Mira. He looked at me sharply. That's exactly why they chose this place. A crowd is cover, noise hides noise, blood mixes with spilled wine. They think I won't risk a scene with civilians. Will you? I whispered. He didn't answer, he didn't need to. On stage someone shouted, "Kiss, kiss," and everyone laughed, clapping and whistling. Mira's cheeks went red, she shook her head, shy, hiding her face with her hand. For a second the world narrowed to just that, my little sister blushing under a storm of phone cameras. A waitress passed behind us with a tray of glasses. Her steps were too careful, her eyes not on the floor or the guests but on Kabia's back. He saw the reflection of her in the mirrored pillar before I did. In one smooth movement he turned, his hand shooting out. The tray clattered, glasses smashing on the ground, juice splashing across the floor like orange blood. People gasped. Kabia's fingers were wrapped around the waitress's wrist. His other hand pulled something from her sleeve, a long, thin piece of metal, not quite a knife, not quite harmless. The hall went silent. "What are you doing?" the girl cried, voice too high, too forced. "Leave me, you broke the glasses." Kabia smiled, a slow, terrifying curve of his lips. "Good waiters don't grip their trays like they're going into war," he said softly. He flipped the metal piece in his hand, it caught the light. "This isn't on the menu." A murmur spread through the guests. Someone shouted for security. A few people started filming, phones held high, hungry for drama they didn't understand. The girl struggled. "It's not mine, someone must have." He leaned in, saying something in her ear I didn't hear. Whatever it was, the color drained from her face. Her knees buckled. His grip on her wrist never tightened enough to hurt, but she stopped fighting. "Ajay," Kabia called without looking away from her. "Pat her down." Ajay appeared like he'd stepped out of the wall. Efficient hands, impersonal, checked her pockets, her waist. He pulled out a small folded photo and a cheap phone. Kabia took the photo, glanced at it. He cursed under his breath in a language I didn't know. He crumpled the picture in his fist. A muscle jumped in his cheek. "Get her out the side door," he ordered. "Don't break her, she's just a pawn." In seconds she was gone, swallowed by the curtains, the broken glass already being swept up by some poor staff member who thought this was just the result of clumsy hands. The band struck up a louder tune, the MC cracking some half-hearted joke to cover the tension. People's fear melted quickly into gossip. "Did you see? She must have tried to steal something. These staff, nah." I watched Kabia's face. "What was in the photo?" I asked quietly. His eyes flicked to me, then away. "Nothing you need to see." "Don't do that," I snapped, more sharply than I meant. "Don't decide for me. If I'm in this mess, I want to know how deep it is." For a second I saw it, the war inside him, the instinct to protect by hiding things, fighting with the respect he insisted on giving me. He opened his hand. The photo was creased, sweaty, but still clear enough. It was my father, sitting on a plastic chair outside our house, drinking his morning chai, a newspaper open on his lap. A red X had been drawn over his face. My knees almost gave out. Kabia's hand shot to my elbow, holding me steady. "Breathe," he murmured. "In, out, look at me." "My father," I whispered. "Why, what does he have to do with this?" "More than you know," he said quietly. "More than he ever told you." My mind flashed back to the way my father had said Sin Hasab, the way his eyes had avoided mine, the endless nights he thought I couldn't hear him arguing with Mom about money. All the times he told me not to stay late at the community center, not to walk alone after dark, not to ask questions. "Tell me," I said, voice shaking but firm. "Tell me what you and my father are hiding." Kabia's jaw clenched. He glanced at the stage. Fearers were being prepared now, the priest lighting fire, chanting. Mira's dupatta had been adjusted to cover her head. My mother hovered, fussing with her jewelry, wiping at imaginary smudges on her cheeks. Ajay reappeared at Kabia's shoulder. "Boss," he said under his breath. "Two of the fake caterers slipped out toward the bridal room. Third is near the generator at the back. They're not here for a hit and run. They're staging something bigger." "Bomb?" Kabia asked, almost casually. "Could be," Ajay replied. "Too many bags, too nervous." My fingers dug into the tablecloth. "Stop them," I said. "What are you waiting for?" Kabia's gaze held mine. If we move loud, they panic. Panic makes people sloppy. Sloppy people shoot anywhere. Your parents are 10 meters from the exit. Kids running everywhere. I need to be surgical." His calm terrified me more than the idea of bullets. "And I need to talk to my sister," I said suddenly. Both men looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "Are you insane?" Ajay hissed. "We just found a girl with a blade and a photo of your dad marked for death, and you want to go to the bridal room? That's exactly where two of them are heading." "Exactly," I said. "If something happens and I haven't even asked Mira why she did this, I'll never forgive myself. I can't just sit here while everyone pretends this is a normal wedding." Kabir stepped closer, his hand coming up, fingers hovering near my cheek, not quite touching. "You walking into danger doesn't make you brave," he said softly. "It just makes you dead." "I'm not asking you to let me go alone," I said, my voice low but steady. "I'm asking you to take me there. You said you came for me. Well, this is what I need. One honest conversation before the world explodes." He closed his eyes for a moment, like he was listening to something only he could hear. When he opened them, there was a storm there, but also something else: surrender. "Ajay, secure this floor," he said, quietly. "No one in or out without our eyes on them. Send Rafi to the generator. I want those bags checked without anyone noticing. If he finds so much as a wire, he cuts it clean." Ajay nodded and melted away. Kabir turned back to me. "We have 3 minutes," he said. "Not one more. We go in, you talk, we leave. If I say we walk, no arguments." "Deal," I said. We moved along the edge of the hall, past relatives too busy filming rituals to notice us slipping away. Up a narrow staircase, the noise dulling behind us with each step. My heels clicked on the marble, echoing louder than my own heartbeat. In front of the bridal room, 2 caterers stood with empty trays blocking the door. Their uniforms were too new. Their eyes tracked movement too sharply for men serving snacks. Kabir's hand brushed my lower back, a gentle push, guiding me behind him. In one smooth motion, his whole body changed shape, shoulders squaring, chin lifting. The harmless guest disappeared. The king of the underworld stepped forward. "Problem?" he asked the men, voice almost bored. They stiffened. For a second, they pretended not to recognize him. Then one of them swallowed so hard I could hear it. "No problem, sir," the taller one said. "Bride is resting, no one allowed inside." Kabir smiled, and I saw both men suck in a breath like someone had opened a freezer door in their faces. "You must be new," he said, "because if you weren't, you'd know that where I go." He nodded once toward the door. "Problems, move aside." His hand went to his jacket, just enough for the metal glint of his gun to be visible. He didn't point it. He didn't need to. The taller man stepped aside, jaw clenched. The shorter one hesitated for half a second too long. Kabir's eyes hardened. "Don't make this the last job you ever fake," he said, voice flat. They moved. He pushed the door open. The bridal room smelled of hairspray, roses, and something else: fear. Mira sat in front of the mirror, veil down, hands resting in her lap, henna dark on her palms. Her reflection caught us before she turned. For a moment she didn't react at all, like her brain had stopped processing new information. Then her eyes widened behind the veil. "Anja," she whispered, "what are you doing here?" The door clicked shut behind us. And above our heads the lights flickered once, twice, then cut out completely.